What if the Night King wasn't the villain? No, seriously. Hear me out. Because I've been sitting with this for years, rewatching scenes, rereading old interviews, going down rabbit holes at 2 in the morning, and I keep coming back to this uncomfortable feeling that we completely misread him. That we were so distracted by the spectacle, the armies, the dragon fire, and the whites, that we missed what was actually happening underneath all of it. We looked at him and we saw a monster. A conqueror. Death itself walking south. But what if he was running? Okay, let's actually start from the beginning. Not the show's beginning, the real beginning. Because the Night King doesn't start as a king of anything. He starts as a man. A human man. The children of the forest. These ancient, magical beings who'd lived in Westeros long before the first men ever showed up. They were losing a war. The first men were cutting down their sacred trees, slaughtering them, pushing them toward extinction. And so, in pure desperation, they did something unthinkable. They took a captive first man, pressed a dragonglass dagger into his chest, and turned him into something that couldn't be killed. A weapon. That's it. That's what the Night King is at his origin. He's not a god, not a mythological force. He's a soldier who was sacrificed, a man who was taken against his will and used as a tool for someone else's survival. Think about that for a second. The children created something they couldn't control, couldn't communicate with, and ultimately couldn't destroy. And then thousands of years passed. Now here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part most people skip over. We assume the Night King is just executing a program, like he was created to destroy, and so he destroys. End of story. But that doesn't hold up when you actually watch him. Watch him hard home. He's standing on a cliff. The battle's over. Jon Snow is sailing away on a boat. And what does the Night King do? He just looks at him, calm, almost curious. He raises his arms. He brings the dead back. But then he just stands there watching. There's no rage in that moment. No desperation. No bloodlust. He looks like someone making a point. Then there's the scene where he reaches up and touches the dragon. Viserion. And he looks almost reverent, like he understands exactly what this creature is. Like he's been waiting. That's not the behavior of a mindless killing machine. That's the behavior of something that developed over thousands of years in the cold and the dark. Something we weren't expecting. A will of its own. So what did it want? Let's talk about the three-eyed raven, because I think this is the most underrated thread in the entire show, and it connects to everything. Bran, in Season 6, is learning to use his green sight, his ability to see into the past, when a Night King finds him. And the Night King grabs him, marks him, and what Bran's training within the cave is immediately thrown into crisis. They have to run. The Night King reaches the cave, kills the old three-eyed raven, kills Hodder. It's chaos. But why? Why does he care so much about Bran specifically? Because Bran isn't just a kid. Bran is memory. The three-eyed raven is living history. He's a repository of everything that ever happened in the world. Every sin, every truth, every moment that's been buried or forgotten. He's the reason the world remembers. And the Night King wanted to erase him. Not just kill him. Erase him. Think about what that means when you pair it with the line that the three-eyed raven himself says, "The long night is coming and the dead come with it. And the living need a memory of what they're fighting for." The Night King knew what Bran was. He'd been alive long enough to understand the green sight. He understood that as long as there was someone who could remember, who could look back into the past and see the truth about what he was, where he came from, what was done to him, his story could be told. But here's where I take it a step further, and this is the theory that genuinely haunts me. What if the Night King wasn't just trying to erase memory of himself? What if he was trying to erase something he remembered? Origins could be exposed. He was trying to be forgotten. He was there. He was alive when the children of the forest made their pact with the first men, the pact that was eventually broken, the agreement that drove the original Long Night. He lived through the Age of Heroes. He watched the wall go up. He watched humanity rebuild and forget and rebuild again. He saw the cycle, and maybe what he understood, after thousands of years of watching from beyond the wall, is that the cycle never stops. Humans destroy. Humans rebuild. Humans make promises they can't keep and wars they can't win. And each time, Thousands of innocent people are turned into weapons, just like he was sacrificed for causes they didn't choose. Maybe the Night King wasn't attacking Westeros. Maybe he was trying to end the cycle. Not out of cruelty, out of something closer to exhaustion. There's this strange mercy to that reading, and it's uncomfortable because it forces you to ask, is he wrong? If you've watched civilizations rise and fall for 10,000 years, if you've seen the same mistakes made over and over with no real correction, would you eventually decide that forgetting is kinder than remembering? Now let's talk about the prophecy angle, because this one is darker. Azor Ahai, the prince or princess that was promised. The idea that a hero of fire would rise to defeat the darkness. This prophecy is ancient. And if the Night King is ancient, he knows it too. So what if his march south wasn't about conquest? What if it was preemptive? The Night King could feel it. The return of dragons, the rise of Daenerys, the emergence of Jon Snow. He could see the pieces aligning. He'd watched this prophecy take shape before, maybe even been burned by it before, literally. And so, he wasn't waiting to be destroyed by a chosen hero. He was moving first. He turned Viserion into an ice dragon. He brought down the wall. He marched on Winterfell. All of it could be read less as an offensive campaign and more as, get there before the prophecy can be fulfilled. Disrupt the pattern before it runs its course again. That's not a villain's plan. That's a survivor's logic. And then there's one more theory. The quietest one. The one that requires you to look north of the Night King, not south. We never find out what's beyond the wall, beyond where even the Night King operates. The show hints at a deeper cold, a deeper darkness. And the books have always treated the supernatural north as something more complex than just undead army. What if there's something up there, something worse, that the Night King is actually keeping at bay? What if he was the lock, not the key? The wall didn't just keep the dead out. It kept something separated. And when it came down, that wasn't a victory for the Night King. That was a collapse of a containment system he'd been maintaining for thousands of years. His march south might not have been invasion. It might have been evacuation. And then he dies. Just like that. Arya comes out of nowhere, he shatters, his entire army collapses, and it's over. And the show moves on to Cersei and power politics, and a final season that felt like it came from a different writer. And we never get an answer. We never get his voice, his motive, his side of the story. And that silence. I think that silence is the point. Because the Night King destroying the three-eyed raven, trying to erase memory, he almost did it to himself. He almost became a figure we couldn't understand, couldn't interrogate, couldn't humanize. He was as close to being just a symbol of death. But we know he was a man. Someone took him. Someone pressed that knife into his chest. Someone said your life is worth less than our survival. And then the world he was born into forgot him. And then they feared him. And then they killed him. And nobody, in the show or out of it, ever asked him what he wanted. That's the thing that keeps me up at night. Not the spectacle, not the battle, not even the wasted potential of Season 8. It's this quiet, devastating truth buried underneath all of it. The most tragic character in Game of Thrones never spoke a word. He never needed to. His entire existence was the statement. Think about that. The next time someone tells you the Night King was just a bad guy, just an obstacle, ask them when he chose to be. Ask them who made him. Ask them who forgot him first. And then sit with the silence.